Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Shalom. I'm David Mencer, Israeli government spokesman. Today, it's Thursday, the 20th of June, day 257 of the October 7th war. A short update and then to your questions. Israel insists that the war in Gaza will not end until all of our goals are met to bring back all of our 120 hostages, dismantling of Hamas's governmental and military capabilities, and removing the terrorist threat. First, an operational update. In Gaza today, IDF confirmed that leading Hamas sniper and Nukba forces commander, one of the perpetrators of the October 7th massacre, was found and eliminated. His name was Ahmed Hassan Salami al-Surka. There was an extensive search for him, but the IDF found him in the Beit Hanun area of northern Gaza. A lot of effort was made to mitigate harm to civilians. We got him and no one else was hurt, thankfully. In Rafa, the IDF are moving systematically, precisely, using intelligence through the area. Hundreds of terrorists have already been eliminated. Over the past 24 hours, troops took out terrorists in close quarters encounters and located rocket launchers. Now to the latest from Kogat and their work coordinating aid into Gaza. Yesterday, 285 aid trucks went into Gaza via the Erez and Kerem Shalom crossings. Aid also arrived from Egypt, the Ashdod port here in Israel and elsewhere in Israel. Only 88 aid trucks were collected by UN aid agencies and also the private sector yesterday. 33 trucks from the Erez crossing and only 55 trucks from Kerem Shalom. Once again, a reminder that the contents of 1,100 aid trucks just waits to be collected from the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom. We're often asked about the J-Lots pier. Here too, just like the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom, pallets of aid have been waiting for days now to be picked up and distributed by the UN. We've said it before, the UN needs to scale up. Aid is not reaching its destination because the UN are hopelessly inefficient. Since the beginning of this war, over 36,000 trucks delivering 682,000 tons of humanitarian aid have entered Gaza. Lastly, please do check out Kogat's Twitter feed showing the bustling Deir al-Bala market today in Gaza, full of produce, fresh fruit, vegetables, supplies aplenty. So that's the end of our briefing today. I will now take your questions, which you should put in the chat together with your news outlet. Thank you very much. First question from Joel Pollack at Breitbart News. Did the comments of the IDF spokesman Daniel Hagari about Hamas being impossible to destroy as an idea hurt the overall war effort? Thank you for that question, Joel. No, I don't believe it did. The long-standing convention here in Israel, a parliamentary democracy, is that the elected government set the parameters of everything, and the IDF are, of course, bravely carrying out the will of the elected government, which is what they have done for many, many years now, since the formation of the State of Israel in 1948, and that is what they will continue to do. Secondly, a question from Joel Pollack, also from Breitbart. Senator Bill Haggerty of Tennessee said that the Prime Minister was correct, that the White House had failed to notify Congress of final approval for arms transfers to Israel. Is that what Netanyahu meant in his video? Thank you for that question, Joel. Look, Israel is the US's closest ally. We've got so many shared values in common, security interests in common. Over decades now, Israel has greatly appreciated the US support, especially here since October 7th. Even when there are differences, were able to resolve them together between friends. Yesterday the Prime Minister met with bipartisan US congressional representatives, where the Prime Minister expressed appreciation for the bipartisan support for Israel, but also said that he hopes that the munitions issue will be resolved very, very soon, will be resolved very, very soon. And the third part of your question, Joel, will the spat over weapons transfers affect the Prime Minister's speech to Congress next month? Thank you for that, Joel. No, I don't believe it will. Next question from Sara Tagliasco from the Jewish news outlet of Rome, Italy, regarding growing anti-Semitism in Europe and North America. Firstly, have any additional measures been adopted for Israelis residing abroad? And secondly, is Israel coordinating with European Jewish communities, institutions, and foreign governments institutions on this matter? Thank you for that question, Sarah. The growing anti-Semitism abroad is, of course, of great concern to the government. All of us know that anti-Semitism is a very light sleeper, the oldest hatred known to mankind, and the explosion of Jew hatred, which there has overtaken so many countries in Europe and in all around the world, in North America and other places as well, is of concern. Regarding Israeli citizens and giving advice to them residing abroad or visiting abroad, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has a specific area on its website which deals with how Israelis should stay safe when they are abroad to keep out of trouble. The next part of your question was, is Israel coordinating with European Jewish communities, institutions, and foreign governments institutions on this matter? Yes, thank you for that question, Sarah. We are, of course, discussing this matter. There are parts of the Israeli government which is in very close contact with Jewish communities around the world, in the US and in Europe and all around the world, in order to ensure that Jewish people are kept safe and protected from anti-Semitism, which has seen such a dramatic rise, especially in countries like France and other countries as well, which have seen some terrible anti-Semitic acts. Jew hatred, as I mentioned, is the oldest hatred in the world. It is a light sleeper, and we've seen this explosion lately. But we know that the way to face up to Jew hatred is not to hide our identities. It's not to sink back between ever higher walls. It's to wear your Jewishness and have pride in your identity. That's the most important thing to do, to see down these Jew haters. Next question, also a question from Sarah, was in an interview with IDF spokesman Daniel Hagari. He said the business of destroying Hamas, making Hamas disappear, is simply throwing sand in the eyes of the public. Given that this is in contrast with what government has been saying, what has been the response to the statement? Thank you for that question, Sarah. I don't believe that quote is from Daniel Hagari. I think that's from one of the leaders of Hamas. Look, we've stated very, very clearly that for this war to end, we insist that it won't end until all of our goals are met. That is the return of all of our hostages, dismantling Hamas's governmental and military capabilities, and removing the terrorist threat. And the precise framework proposed by Israel during the negotiations maintains this principle while establishing conditions for the transition between those stages. Look, Hamas again and again and again throughout this process have prevented a hostage release pause, and they continue to do that unreasonably. There's countless times now that they have rejected any pause. And what they do is they unreasonably demand that the IDF exit Gaza and end the war in a way that leaves them and their reign of terror intact. Look, we are not going to have that. We're not going to enable Hamas to repeatedly commit the atrocities which they did on October the 7th, the massacre. And we will not allow this genocidal terrorist organization to remain in power in Gaza. In a certain sense, we are liberating Gaza from Hamas. Okay, next question from Linda Gradstein from Voice of America. Could you comment on Palestinian claims of torture of Palestinian prisoners in both the West Bank and Stay Taman prison? Thank you for that question, Linda. Israel maintains the highest levels of international law when it comes to dealing with Palestinian prisoners. There is no torture, and there's never been shown to be any torture that I'm aware of. It's unfortunately Hamas which hold Israeli prisoners and tortures them daily, as confirmed by the rescued hostages which were rescued just a week and a half ago. Hamas are the terrorist organization, and any attempt to try and project their evil torture of our people onto terrorists and Palestinian prisoners being held by Israel is simply ridiculous. I've not seen any evidence whatsoever. Israel maintains the highest levels of international law when it comes to Palestinian prisoners. The prisoners which Hamas are trying to get out of prison are prisoners who are murderers. They are murderers, like the jihadists of 7/7 in London, like the jihadists of 11th of September in New York and Washington D.C. and elsewhere. They are jihadists. Jihadists, that's what they are. They're after the destruction of Israel, but they're also the destruction of anyone that does not subscribe to their brand of Islamo-fascist jihadism. Thank you. Next question from Hannah Julian from the Jewish Press. There are reports that most, if not all, the Democrat members of Congress plan to boycott Prime Minister Netanyahu's address. So is there any update on the date for that address? And can you respond to the boycott of the joint session by nearly half of the Congress? Thank you for that question, Hannah. I've already in this briefing spoken about the close relationship, the bipartisan relationship between Israel and the United States of America. We have stood side by side, shoulder to shoulder for so many decades now. We are fighting a war for our very existence, When Hamas invaded our borders on October 7th, they sought to destroy this country. When Iran fired their 350 ballistic missiles, suicide drones, projectiles against this country in April, they sought to destroy this country. I think that the bipartisan relationship is extremely important. The date which has been, in terms of the date which has been set for the address, the latest information I have is for the end of July. That's the last information. I haven't seen any changes or any update on that date. But if there are any updates on that date, then we will of course let you know. In terms of in terms of this boycott of a joint session of nearly half of the Congress, I think that's scaremongering. I think that the majority of Americans are on Israel's side. The last statistics I've seen of support for Israel against these genocidal jihadis has been in the region of 70 to 80%. The reason that there is so much support for this country fighting against this genocidal terror organization and these jihadis is because we're on the front line of this terror. If we don't succeed here, then they'll be coming to you soon in the outside world, outside of Israel and further afield. So I simply don't recognize that as being true. That sounds like scaremongering to me. Question from David Clement from the News Forum. Canada has now declared the IRGC as a terrorist organisation. Does the Prime Minister's office have comment on that development? Thank you for that question, David. I haven't seen that in terms of that development in Canada, so forgive me if I've missed that. If that has indeed come to pass, then that is a positive development, because the IRGC is Iran's Revolutionary Guard Council, a terrorist organization, I think recognized by many countries around the world. Iran, as separate from the Iranian people, Iran is a Islamo-fascist type regime that carries out terrible crimes against its own people. And of course, they have openly declared their desire to wipe this country off the face of the map. We're not going to let that happen. We're standing up to their aggression. It's aggression against us. They call us the little Satan, but they call the US, and I think they would probably include Canada in that as well. They call the US the big Satan. So if that has indeed come to pass, as you're saying in Canada, again, apologies for I haven't seen that development yet, but if that is indeed the case, then that is a positive development. Follow-up question from Joel Pollack at Breitbart News, follow-up on Hagari. Is there a concern that the military is trying to send a signal to the civilian leadership about the direction of war policy? Thank you for that question, Joel. Joel, that's not something I recognize. I think there's a few misnomers here. Firstly, we are taking apart Hamas in Gaza. And we know that the defeat of Hamas in Gaza, we talk about them, the prerequisite for the end of this war being defeating Hamas militarily and also their governing capabilities. That does not necessarily mean eliminating every single Hamas terrorist, but it means taking away their, exactly as we say, their governmental and military capability. We're already seeing that. You probably may have seen reports that in many parts of Gaza, because Hamas are lacking men to fight their genocidal war against us, they've taken to using children. IDF, I've seen reports, IDF are now seeing children, under 18, teenagers, with rocket-propelled grenades now. Now, that is very similar to the closing stages of the Second World War, when Hitler's Nazis also recruited teenagers to don the Nazi uniform and fight the Allies. We're winning in Gaza. We're taking this organization apart. We won't stop until it's done. The idea that Hamas will stay in power in Gaza is a non-starter. We don't see that we have to kill every single... In the same way, in the end of the Second World War, not every single Nazi was eliminated, but the capability of the Nazi regime, military and governing capability, was destroyed, which is why they finally surrendered. We say again, this war could end right now, this afternoon, if Hamas lay down their weapons and release our hostages. It will be over right now. These jihadists, the Hezbollah jihadists, have pretend to represent Gazans. They don't. They represent a genocidal jihadism. But we're standing up against it, and we are winning. We are being successful. We're taking them apart. The final stronghold in Rafa is being taken apart systematically, slowly, with intelligence, house by house, tunnel by tunnel, home by home. We're taking them apart, and we will win. This conflict will end when we've set out the three objectives of this war, and they are directed by the elected government of this country. And these three objectives still have overwhelming support in this country, and we'll take them forward until we finish the job. I think there was one more question which I didn't see. There was one more question, I think, that I didn't see, and that was the top one there. Yes. Jim Williams from Zenga News Service. David, after watching Screams Before Silence last night on your recommendation, I felt sick, angry and compelled to join the IDF. Is the Prime Minister or any government official taking steps to ensure the film is seen by people worldwide, particularly those participating in pro-Palestinian protests? And you write there that your morning column is about the film. Thank you very much for that question, Jim. As I mentioned to you on Monday, the film Screams Before Silence, which you can see on YouTube, it's freely available to see on YouTube, is the most harrowing hour that you could possibly watch, not because of the visual items or the terrible things which Hamas did to men and women, but because it lays clear, without any doubt, the systematic. It was that the rapes were systematic. They weren't one-offs. They weren't, as one of the captured Hamas terrorists said. He said the devil took over him. This was a systematic attempt to brutalize our people in a way which has happened for generations, unfortunately. It was, women were rounded up and kept in a certain place for raping. This was a system, and the way which they were raped, and the way in which men and women were abused, they were abused in the same way. In the same way, it was a systematic attempt. It was guided by the Hamas leadership. They were told what to do, and they did it in the most dastardly way. So that film is available on YouTube for all to see. I would recommend all of the journalists really share that with your readers, because it really shows what this country is facing and why this terrible terrorist organization must be stood up to, and it must be defeated, and it is being defeated. Okay, final question from Sara Tagliasco from the Jewish news outlet of Rome in Italy. US officials estimate that only 50 hostages are still alive. Can you comment on this matter? Thank you for that question, Sarah. We have 120 hostages who we know are in Hamas captivity. Some have been killed already. Some were killed on October the 7th and their bodies taken back to Gaza. Some of those bodies were taken back by UNRWA officials. We've got video of UNRWA officials taking their bodies like trophies back to Gaza. We know that many have been killed since, but many are still alive. Look, this is an extremely, extremely sensitive issue. We are working 24/7 around the clock to get these people home. It's the objective which drives our soldiers in Gaza. It's one of the objectives of this war, but lives literally hang in the balance, so I can't give you any more information about that report, which I think originally appeared in the Wall Street Journal. But I want to tell you that from the government's point of view, that this is our objective 24/7, to bring these people home, and the hostages who are no longer alive to be able to bring their remains home, so that they can have a burial, a Jewish burial, to give them, give their families closure, and to give them the respect which they deserve. So that's the end of our briefing today. That was the last question. Thank you for joining us. Please do stay safe, and the next briefing should be on Monday. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Djobnik signing off.